Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever wanted to know what it was like to go from Gonzaga to Guam as a legal professional and still achieve success in real estate investing, then guess what? Today's conversation is the one that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word, I promise. Because today's guest is not only originally from Alaska, yeah, I did say Alaska, he also has his doctorate of law from Gonzaga out in Spokane. And I did say his JD. And guess what? Something special happened when he turned 19 as an undergrad at Truman State in Missouri. And you know what? He's definitely going to tell us about that. And so I'd like to welcome, without any further ado, today's guest, Mr. Rolland Wimberley. Rolland, welcome to the show, man.
Good afternoon, Billy. Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you from that wonderful place where you are today. And I'm super excited. I know I kind of already told the place where you are, but hey, listen, I got carried away. I couldn't help myself. And you know what? I have to admit, from the moment that I heard your story, when we met in that Clubhouse virtual room, I was like, oh my gosh, you're telling this story and you're doing what? You're long distance investing from here, from there. Oh my God, I got to get you on the show. And so I'm really, really happy that you've decided to spend some time with us to help people understand from a mindset perspective that any and everything is possible if you just get behind it. So let me stop talking a little bit. And I would love for you to help us understand, well, where exactly are you based in the world?
Well, thank you for having me on, Billy. I live in the territory of Guam, way out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right off basically a couple hours away from the Philippines and everything. I work for the local government out here, and I invest back stateside where I've lived.
All right, awesome. So out in the Great Pacific Ocean in Guam. And hey, by the way, everybody, if you don't know exactly where it is, I mean, he's kind of helped you a little bit, but go look at it on the map. Like, it's really, really cool to do that. It's awesome. And the pictures on your Instagram feed, I'm kind of talking about things, are amazing as well. So you're definitely going to want to check out the video version of this. So you are in Guam. So that's fantastic. U.S. territory. Help us understand, Rolland, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
I had a great talk with my mom. Normally, she's also one of my business partners and everything. Both my parents are. So a lot of our long distance phone calls and everything revolve around business meetings and board meetings and running a grocery store business, which they own. But this was just more on the personal side because they're traveling and they're away from everything. And it was nice to just kind of sit back and have an hour to catch up and see how they're doing with my brothers and everything else as they're traveling around the West Coast. So that was definitely my highlight of the last day.
Man, and I love that you share that with us, Rolland, because it's one of those things. And I also have a family where people work together and stuff like that. And it can be very, very, just happens all the time that all of a sudden you're sitting at the dinner table or at the lunch table or you're on a phone call. And business, they're constantly talking business all the time. And so when you get those special moments where it's just like, hey, listen, it's mom, it's dad, it's my brother, my sister, whatever, and you're just talking about life and stuff like that, it's so awesome. And I think not enough times when we're in family businesses, we forget to enjoy those moments. So thanks for sharing that with us. And that awesome moment in the last 24 hours, or maybe just a little outside of 24 hours. That's okay. We'll forgive you here. So listen, and I've given kind of a couple of really high level things about you, but I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, Rolland, like what are some of the different, I guess, decisions that you've made and to get to this point in your journey, and really just share a little bit more about your backstory so we can get to know you some bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up, I was born and raised in a small town in Alaska, a little island called Wrangell. It's just south of Juneau there, right by the Canadian border. My parents own a little small mom and pop grocery store on the island. Grew up working with them, seeing how they run a business and how life was, how they handled money. I graduated high school and I got a Division II wrestling scholarship, small one, to go out to Missouri. where I didn't know anybody. But so I went to go wrestle at Truman State in Northeast Missouri. And that is kind of where my real estate adventure started and then stopped for about 10 years. But I basically bought my first house at 19. You're supposed to live in the dorms that first year, so you acclimate and get used to hanging out with everybody and being away from home. And then I took all my savings together and everything and purchased my first single family house out there in Missouri.
And it's so you've got a number of things, and I don't even know if you would know this about me, but I actually I used to live in Missouri. So I lived in St. Louis for quite a while. And it was an amazing time. And you're also kind of going down memory lane, because I think about the first year when I was I went to Miami University in Southwest Ohio. And it was one of those things too, like the first year you had to live on campus to get acclimated to the lifestyle and things like that. And then afterwards you had the opportunity. I lived on campus for 2 years, but I wish I would have had the foresight that you did at that time to already start investing, things like that. And you mentioned some things about your family business and the business acumen. So I guess maybe even before we kind of talk more about how you're doing what you're doing today, what influence do you believe growing up in a family business, and whereas most people are thinking about where they're going to live in their second year dorm, you were already thinking about, well, what asset can I actually purchase? So what influence do you think your family business had on that thought process?
Yeah. So I grew up, like I said, in a small family business. So I started working and saving when I was like 13. Bought my first car when I turned 16. And that was my big thing. It was $3,000 for a little Ford Ranger that was older than I was. But I started working my parents' business, and I started at the ground level. I started in the produce department, peeling onions and separating bananas coming off the boat, because everything gets shipped up in big Boyer containers on a barge to Alaska. So I worked my way up to assistant manager, and then managing while my parents were off island or doing different things. And eventually now currently, since law school, I have become a board member with them. So I'm helping them kind of run it, even today. So that's my second W-2 job. Definitely keeping busy and everything. But I think it definitely instilled a sense of work ethic and, kind of grind in me, that if I wanted something, I had to work and save up for it. And that, it's not just one thing, but, kind of all the different aspects. And they showed me, and they did through their own work, that if you're working hard and you're doing the right things, and with a little bit of luck as well, you can definitely pull yourself, from what you started at to what you want to be. So I appreciate them a lot for that.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like that you had the great foundation, right? And also being able to start right at the level, at the base level, right? And so being able to see what's going on and then work your way up through the organization, because like you're starting at the very front line. And, it's one of those things, Rolland, that it seems to me that the harder and smarter that people work, the luckier they get. So it is really interesting when you talk about luck, because I'm always like, well, yeah, usually the luckiest people are the ones that are working really hard and working really smart. So testament to you. And it's great to also help us understand more about the insight that you saw at a really young age, right? In that drive. And even at 13, you were starting to work. You did say 13, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
So at 13, you're starting to work and you're involved in the family business. You understood the value of being able to not only save your work for your money, save your money, and then be able to use it on the things that were important to you. At 16 years old, most of us wanted a car. So I have a Honda Civic or Honda CVCC at the time is what it was called. And eventually we could see the street. It was bad, really, really bad. But anyway, we won't talk about that too much. So you're just turned 19. You purchased your property, and then you mentioned two. I think everyone needs to hear this. Once again, he did say 2 W-2s as well as a real estate investor. So maybe just go back through those two. I know you talked about being prosecutor, but most people would say one job is enough. Like, why have two and be a real estate investor?
Yeah. So, I mean, and a lot of people ask, like, can I invest in real estate while having a W-2 job and everything? And absolutely, because I'm in a bit of a unique situation being out here in Guam. Like you said, I'm a prosecutor, working for the Attorney General's office out here for Gov Guam. But because of that, and because I'm all the way out in Guam living, the time zone difference is so crazy that I'm able to get up at 4, 5 in the morning, and get, half a day's work in for my parents and stuff, still doing meetings, still doing board meetings and setting up different things, doing evaluations, doing online work, and everything. I just, a couple of weeks ago, had to get what's called a TAPS card. It's basically my bartender's license for being able to sell, being on the board, being able to sell liquor and alcohol through the business. So I can also be a bartender if, the world falls apart.
You want more. You're just an overachiever, man. You're an overachiever, Rolland.
I already have my 4 a.m. job. I need my, my 9 p.m. job. So, no, actually, so there's a lot of things, and I'm a big fan of lifelong learning and lifelong, just if something interests you and you can expand on that you absolutely should, like whether it's getting another certificate or getting, involved in something else, be it coaching kids or anything else like that, anything that is self-development and self-learning and a way to give back to other people as well. You got to find those little things, because otherwise, if I was just working 2 full-time jobs and investing and having these side hustles and everything, you'd get burnt out. And so you've got to find those little things in there that keep you sane and, save some of your sanity points while you're doing that, especially in today's world where, everything's been on lockdown and COVID's happened and everything. You definitely have to take the little moments, just like the phone call with my mom or going to the beach on weekends or after work or something like that. We're just starting to open back up bars and restaurants on the island. So definitely going to take a few moments to appreciate what we do have. So no, I'm all about that.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I love that. And, I want to go back to something that you talked to us about at the very beginning, right? So you're in Wrangell, and it also too, like when people talk to you and we're listening to us and watching us, like literally you need to get the map out, because your story is so awesome, man, because you started in Wrangell and you kind of look at this island town and you go, and then you went from there and you went to Missouri, right? And you went to a Division II. You did wrestling. Did you know anybody there before you moved there?
Nope. I'd been out there once to meet the coach and a few of the guys on the wrestling team, but I moved out there knowing nobody.
Okay. There were no other people from Wrangell there, basically, right? I mean,
it was a hard reset button.
All right. So then just go with me here. So you went from Wrangell, then you went to Gonzaga, right? Because you were getting your JD, your doctorate of law, in Spokane. Did you know anybody there?
No, not directly there. I've got some family, some distant cousins and everything, but not anybody that I knew too much. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I've got just one more destination, then we're done, I promise. So then from there you went to Guam, right? And how many people did you know in the U.S. territory of Guam before you went there?
Also 0. Yeah. I've been bouncing around and having not much of a safety net as far as socially and, the people I know.
Okay. So I think I find this fascinating, right? So from a small town and you've gone to these different places and you didn't know anybody, you have been successful in each of these places, meaning that you were able to attain the goals that you wanted to be able to do, right? You got your bachelor's, you wrestled, you got your JD, and now you're a prosecutor in the U.S. territory of Guam. And by the way, you are a board member at your family company. You're becoming a bartender if you want, and a real estate investor. So, how in the world does a guy that comes from a small town, right, where probably knew everybody, to go into all these different places and feeling comfortable and then also achieving while you're in these places? That's a mindset thing. Help us understand more about that.
It absolutely is a mindset thing. I'll go with maybe a little bit of stereotype in the, coming from a small town, like just, when you're 17, 18 years old and you've grown up and, a graduating class of only 28. And all you want to do is get off the rock, get off the island, go explore, go do something new. But also I've loved to travel ever since forever, growing up doing all the different sports, because our high school was so small that if you were a bit athletic, you just did all the sports because you could. So I did cross country, I did wrestling, I did baseball for a few years, but that's not really my thing. I even did cheerleading for a while so that I could, pick up some girls and learn to do a backflip and all the stuff that, is important to a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah. So this is really, really interesting, right? Because, and this is something that I see, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have these types of conversations, right? And a lot of us that are that we're enthralled by investing long distance, there happens to also be a lot of similarity in terms of travel. And so the fact that you're able to travel and move and meet people, and that's something that seems to come easier to you and you like it, I'm sure that that's something that plays into the success that you're having in terms of investing. But before we go there, because you just mentioned sports, right? And you talked about cross country. I ran cross country as well in high school. So that's it's a very individual sport. And at the same time, you put all the points together and you figure out who has the lowest time and all that stuff. Wrestling, I had a lot of friends in high school that were wrestlers, some in college as well. And so also it's very individual, and then you add the points up and then you decide who wins and stuff like that. And then you play baseball. So I'm just curious, how did the playing very individual sports and then also having had some experience with team sports and baseball, but maybe you didn't like it so much, how have those helped you those experiences helped you be successful today in your real estate investing career?
So I would say my main sport was wrestling. And it is a very individual sport. There is the team aspect, there's the team building and the working out together and the camaraderie that I absolutely loved. But when you're out there on the mat and when you're wrestling and everything, it's just you. It's just down to you. There's nobody you can tag in. There's nobody you can pass the ball to. It's all in what you've put into it behind the scenes. There's that great Muhammad Ali quote and everything, I ran on the street long before I danced in the lights kind of thing. So it's all that time you put in behind the scenes, working out, running even after practice and everything for your gas tank and for your technique and everything. But when you shake hands and get ready for the match, it's all on you. It's all on the preparation you've done and the determination and what you've done leading up to that. So it's very individualized and it's very rewarding, but it's also a lot on who you are and yourself, and how that working with your team but working on yourself, which I greatly enjoyed.
Cool. So really being able to understand that when the ball's in your court, it's really up to you to do what you do best. And at the same time, being coordinated with other members of the team to make sure that they understand what they need to be doing when, quote unquote, they're on the mat, right? Is that that's the kind of thing that is really resonating and what I'm hearing you say that you're taking or that you've taken from your wrestling days, which I think is perfect. Let's maybe take a step back, right? Because we've kind of gone on. You're like long distance, man. Like you are the epitome of long distance. I thought I was like doing that, right? From Barcelona back to the States, but you're like, keep going. So you got into, you purchased your first property. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that experience was like and kind of why, like, because you could have just gone the second year into the dorm, right? Like most people do, but you're like, oh, I want to go out and I'm going to buy something. Like maybe tell us a little bit about that experience, man, because most people at 19 are not thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I went looking around at the end of my freshman year, looking at places, looking at houses, whether I was going to, move out of the dorms and into an apartment or whether, what are the other options were. A lot of people get together, 3-4 guys and we'll rent a house. And I figured, and instead of renting and throwing that, money towards someone else and paying someone else's mortgage, I talked with my parents and everything. And they were like, well, we talked about it and just kind of like, why don't you buy the house? And, if you can still live with your friends, you can still, rent out rooms and get together and everything. And, they'll help you pay the mortgage. And so maybe, if you decide to sell it after 4 years, after you move away, it'll have gone toward it'll have gone with the down payment. It'll have gone toward the mortgage, and that can be your nest egg starting out with life. And I thought that sounded like a good idea. So I bought this little 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom farmhouse on the edge of town that's sitting on half an acre. So it's got a big front yard and backyard, and it had a nice little patio with a fire pit. And it was certainly an older farmhouse, but it was just a good experience. It was definitely what started me on this journey. And I'm glad that I listened, and I'm glad that I started, and that way when I looked back, I could see that this was the right move.
So when you found out that you figured out that was the right move for you at that moment in time, right? And so one of the other things that I hear you saying is you were able to go and talk about this with advisors. You're very fortunate that your advisors were your parents, right? And you talked about it. And after having gone and looked at it from a number of different angles, it sounds like you came up with the decision that it made the most sense for you and what you wanted to do at that point in your life. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. We thought through all the different ways, what could go wrong, what could go right. And just that this seemed like the right path to go. And I absolutely admit that, yes, it is. On that part, I am very lucky that, I have good mentors and good, people that I can turn to within, and very lucky to have them within my own family, and that I are just a phone call away and have been that way. So that has been absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. You know what? And I guess when you have these kinds of things that happen in the family, you probably can even like show some love, give some shouts out when you get that kind of support. So if you want to give some shouts out to the family members, you can go ahead and do that now, man. I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to give a shout out to my mom, Shirley Wimberley, and my dad, Rolland Curtis. They're both traveling around right now, but they'll be heading back home to Wrangell, Alaska here in a bit, probably when this airs and everything. So hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Love you guys.
We love that. Like, gotta show the love, man, when you get those types of positive influences at home. And so, when you think about that, so you mentioned one of the things of this property you all talked about it and you made the decision. You went in and you purchased the property, and it was the right thing. And you were looking at bringing friends in, and they were going to help to pay the mortgage. And if all else, well, at least you had that property and it was kind of paid for. But you mentioned that it was a 3-1. You also, it sounded like there was a lot of space. And kind of what did that 3-1, is it still 3-1 today, or kind of what does that look like today?
No. So like I said, this was like now it's over 100-year-old farmhouse. And so it's had some deferred maintenance that needed to be done and some stuff, the foundation and everything. And while we were in there, we have basically done a full gut remodel, turn the mud room on the ground floor into a 4th bedroom, put an extra bathroom in the upstairs. So we've put some work into it, and we've put some getting it all turned around. And if it was ever going to be like a fix and flip or anything, but now it is a 4-2 sitting there still on that half acre. So it's a good little spot. So it's definitely been a learning experience, as all our first properties tend to be. But it's definitely held its own against me. So I've enjoyed it.
So here's the thing that I love about that story, right? Is that you made the decision to go ahead and move forward. And then from there, you also looked at what we would typically call a phased appreciation, which you changed the use of the actual physical structure that you had to be able to increase the revenue, and ultimately being able to do that, maintaining the cost or decreasing the cost to drive up your net operating income, right? Which is going to overall add value to the property. Now, it sounds like it hasn't been perfect. And at the same time, you've decided to continue to move forward. I mean, because that wasn't your last purchase, right? I mean, you've done more since then.
Yeah. So I did kind of leave real estate behind. I mean, I went to law school. I did some other things. Started an LLC with my parents, and we bought into an office building in Wrangell. So we did some other business ventures. But since coming out to Guam, I bought my current condo, which again, I'm house hacking and renting out a room to another attorney who's also moved out to Guam. But I've started reinvesting in properties in Alaska and Missouri. So I've started scaling up and buying more in there since then. And I'm got half a dozen properties there now, and starting to work toward bigger things. But that was a learning experience, but it certainly was not the last one.
Yeah. And so this is what I want the entire Going Long family to understand. Like Rolland, he had an experience. He saw an opportunity. He went from 3-1 to a 4-2. It wasn't perfect. And at the same time, he had other life priorities. So he focused on those for a while, but he didn't quit. Like, he kept going, and he continues to do it. Now he's sitting in Guam. He's using strategies that he had before, right? Because it's the same type of strategy that you used back in college in your undergrad that you're using today while you're living in Guam. And at the same time, you're going long, like you're continuing to build in both Alaska and Missouri. So the question that I'm sure that most people have is, like, you're in Guam, like you could have just done the house hack and maybe purchased some other things there. Like, why in the world would you continue to go thousands of kilometers and miles away to build out your portfolio?
It's kind of a two-step or a two-phase answer. One, I lived there. I knew the area a lot better. I knew what neighborhoods were good, not so great, what I was kind of looking for when it came to the tenants I wanted and the school and everything. So I knew the area. And because I knew the area, I also had a team there. I had my property manager. I had, because I had so much work done, I had a contractor and a construction company. Because living so many thousands of miles away, you got to have your agent and property management all set up. So I had all that in place. And secondly, It's Missouri. It's the Midwest. The prices of property are a lot less expensive, and so it's a great spot, especially if you're doing long distance or anything, to dip your toe in and get kind of starter homes or get some areas where you can fix them up and get into real estate without that huge price tag.
Okay. So there's really two things at play here, right? And there never is, or very rarely is there one specific reason, but you talked about number one, already having familiarity with those places, right? And so that gives you a leg up. You have teams that are in those locations that are providing you with what you were looking for, which is cash flow. And then you also have the added advantage of being in the Midwest, specifically where you're looking there. We also talked about continuing to look in Alaska and business ventures there, which I think is great. But it comes down to, and one of the things that we always talk about here and going along is really you understand what it is that you're looking for from your personal philosophy. So you know that you're looking for cash flow. And so then you go to those locations where you're very fortunate because you went to university in one of those places. And then from there, you're building your team. And so now whether you purchase another duplex or you purchase a 25 or 100 unit apartment building, your team is already in place, right? Or at least you have the network of people that are there. So, and then you have the purchasing power, which is much stronger in the Midwest, and I'm a Midwest guy, so that is one of the advantages that we have in the Midwest, right? Is being able to do that. And so, two questions come to mind. The first one is networking, and we're going to get to that because I want to understand how important networking is, given that you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But I want to come back to the other part of how are you actually maintaining and getting the visibility that you need in terms of managing your properties through your team when you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, man?
Well, it takes, you just got to have a good team that you trust. And you've really got to be able to put your faith in that. And we talked about, sports and everything that, when I'm doing what I'm best at, my highest and best use, and what I'm good at. And then I've got to have, you do all your background checks and all your due diligence and everything. But when you get past that phase, there's a point where you gotta, hand off that baton or give it to somebody else and let them run with it, because I can't be overseeing, people 24 hours a day, nor do I want to. So I've got to trust, have a good team, but then be able to trust that they're doing what they're paid to do, what their job and their best interest is. It's just like having an attorney or an accountant or somebody you're paying for specialty skills. I'm not going to double check their math or, do stuff like that. I'm paying them for a reason, and they're a part of my team for a reason. So I'm they're on my team to take stuff off my plate, not for me to babysit. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Frequent communication, probably leveraging a lot of the things like we're leveraging here, like Zoom or whatever the case may be. So I think that's good. And then ultimately, yes, they're there to be able to provide you with a service as an extended member of your team. And then I guess before we actually get into the kind of going along final three, it's the question of networking. I know that it's something that I think a lot about because a lot of the activity is in mainland USA, right? Me being here in Europe, I realize that networking and being able to build strong networks is something that's important. And I have a way that I do that, but I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, number one, kind of how important you see networking in terms of being able to continue to maintain and increase your success. And then how do you go about doing networking in an effective manner, Rolland?
Well, I'm a big proponent, big fan of networking, and I'm trying to strengthen that muscle, do that more. I've done a lot of that where I'm just, getting to know people and boots on the ground and building those relationships while I'm there. I'm trying to get better at kind of expanding my network, especially now that I'm here and I'm looking at trying to get bigger deals or expand outside of these very small niche marketplaces. So, and that's where I'm running into, some of the issues as well, and where I'm realizing that networking is so important and everything. I mean, I'm a part of different, the Bigger Pockets website, Facebook groups for, Guam real estate investors and everything. How me and you met on Clubhouse and everything. That is an absolutely amazing tool. I have connected with some people that are in St. Louis or around, and a deal may or may not come from that, but it has definitely been a great tool at this time for where I am at, and I am a huge proponent and love that fact. But I am definitely trying to get out there more, because it is something that I need to get better at, which I feel that I'm a great people person and I'm extroverted and can travel around a lot, but I need to, get to know and get to meet the right people. So it's been great.
Yeah, which I think well, I don't think, I know for sure that you're taking the right steps, you're taking the right actions, and you're taking action. A lot of times people will just stay in this mode of passive, but the fact that you are looking to extend your network, that you're, as you said before, that you're looking to strengthen that muscle, it's just a matter of doing it over and over and over. You're reaching out on the different platforms, and you're not able to go and fly probably every week to a boot camp somewhere in, name your city, major MSA in the United States. MSA meaning major metropolitan statistical area, so like a larger city and the outskirts. And so you're utilizing the different tools and channels that you have at your availability. So, and I know I said this before, but listen, before we go into the Going Long Final Three, so it sounds like you're enjoying your W-2s. You're also looking for new outlets, like becoming a bartender. No, just a joke. And at the same time, you are continuing to increase your investing in your real estate and your businesses and things like that. Help us just paint a picture. Kind of, where do you see things going from here in the next 2 to 5 years, something like that?
So that's very interesting, because Guam is unique in a way. I've been out here for 3 years, and when I get a state bar license, I've got my license in Washington State and Alaska. Guam allows you to come out here and work, and they give you a temporary license. So I came out here on a 5-year temporary license. So it's good for 5 years. It's good to get some experience and everything else. And at the end of that 5 years, I either need to take the Guam bar, or I figure out what my next step is. So in 2 to 5 years, I will be trying to figure out where I'm going or what I'm doing in the next step of my life. But at that point, I want to upgrade again and move into bigger deals, move into multifamily, now that I've got half a dozen or so single family homes, kind of start building into bigger deals, bigger properties. Because if you can handle, 1 or 2, you can handle 5 or 6. And if you can handle that, you can handle 12, 20, and so on and so forth. So
200, 300, 3,000, 7,000, 10,000. It's all a matter of scale once the infrastructure is in place, my friend.
Yeah. Once you have your team, once you have your system, you can 10x it real fast. So that's where I'm looking to do in the next hopefully year or two. I've still been doing this all through the COVID and pandemic. So I don't see that slowing down. Hopefully just shifting gears and building up. So looking at a multifamily, an apartment complex or an apartment building in the Midwest, maybe outside of my small little town that I've been investing in, but so also expanding in that regard.
All right, perfect. So I think if I can use one word one word, you're going to continue to grow in that area. And you're giving yourself the direction, and you're also going to have the flexibility to be able to pivot, provided that you need to do that. So, wow. So Rolland, so here's the thing, right? Like, I want to keep talking to you forever, man. Like, I just want to keep talking because I just think it's awesome what you're doing, because you just epitomized this also too, going long philosophy. But I guess I kind of have to get to the going long final three. But the thing is, I never ask the going long final three unless you tell me that you're ready for me to ask you. So my question is, are you ready?
Born ready to go.
Yes. All right, here we go. So the very first question is, and we kind of started where you live in the world, but I always like to bring things back to Europe, right? Because that's where I live. And so we're building bridges to one another. So my thing is, help us understand, what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
The favorite city that I have been to in Europe so far is Amsterdam. I love the culture of it. I love the atmosphere, the weather, because I'm, from that latitude and everything, that kind of colder spot. I mean, I live in a tropical island right now, but it's got the canals, it's got the history, it's got the countryside. That's my favorite so far.
All right, perfect. So we got another vote for Amsterdam as a favorite European city. So here's the other thing, like, the second question really has to do with the success, right? And everyone that comes here and as a guest is a successful person. Like, you've demonstrated success in every single destination that you've made. And like most really successful people, you've only made one kind of mistake or learning experience in your entire. I always get that wrong. I completely get that wrong every single time. So hang on a second. So the whole thing about the successful people is that, we're making mistakes constantly. And so I guess it's not necessarily the mistake that was made or the learning experience, whatever you want to call it. It's really, what is the one lesson that you think is really important that you could pay forward to the Going Long family today, so that we can continue to grow as a result of your learning opportunity?
I love how you phrase it like that, because I mean, as much as we might wish that I only make one mistake, if that was the case, then I've made my mistake and I'm, smooth sailing from here on in. But no, make lots of mistakes, and that's how you learn. And that's how you get better. But my learning experience on that, I'm going to still stick with that first house, because the first one, your first house, your first heartbreak, those are the things that teach you a lot. So, but what I learned from that first house is, even on those things that I didn't know, the capital expenditures, the things that could go wrong with an older house, the upgrades that were needed, I still have it today. And because of that, I didn't get scared, and I didn't sell it when it was down. Real estate is a very forgiving asset. And what I mean by that is that if you have patience and you stick with it and everything, I didn't sell when things went hard, and real estate does tend to go up over time, and I can still rent it out. I can still do all this stuff. So I put some money into it, but that money is still there. So I haven't necessarily lost money. And it's still renting. It cash flows today. If I had just gotten rid of it back then and thrown my hands up in the air and quit, I would not be where I am today. I would not be who I am today. So what I mean by that is that real estate in that way, if you're determined and if you're willing to learn, it's a very forgiving asset, and it can make even take a lot of those mistakes and still keep kicking. So
love it. So it's a long-term play, and patience is a virtue, and this is an asset that can be forgiving as long as you have patience and you're doing your due diligence on the front end. So love that. Thank you for sharing that with us and giving us that perspective. And I guess this is the last part, man. We really want to help. We need your help in feeding our brains. So what one book would you recommend to the Going Long family?
There are so many, especially in this last year. I made a promise to myself to read a book a week, and I completed that with all the extra time we had. But I thought about this, listening to the other episodes, and I'm going to go with the long distance real estate investing. That's what this is all about. That's what, me and you both do. I've obviously got it all tabbed up and everything. Yeah. So, David Green from Bigger Pockets, long distance real estate investing, has definitely, and that's where a lot of my personal thoughts and what I've learned on it goes into great detail on how to structure your team and how to get those systems in place and how to set this up so that you're not the one getting called at 2 a.m, because that's what everybody's afraid of. Those toilets that break at 2 a.m, and things that go wrong, and all the problems that could happen in real estate. And there are problems. But that's what makes it worthwhile, is we're willing to solve these problems. And if you just do the work on the front end, like you were talking about, doing that due diligence, doing that work on the front end, you can make it a lot easier on yourself. And so that's what I've been reading about and learning about and implementing in our lives. So that
Awesome. So we'll make sure that we include that as well in the show notes. And wow, time flies, man. Rolland, it certainly flies, man. You've really shared a lot with us. As you mentioned, you're starting in Alaska, and then you're moving to next destination in Missouri, and then from Missouri to Washington, and then from Washington out to Guam. And you love continuing to not just educate, but educate and put into action. Had a very strong, positive influence from family members to be able to really thinking about how you accumulate assets and use those to help you to have a more abundant life. And at the same time, you continue to look at how you're going to continue to grow and how traveling has helped to influence the way that you're doing things. And I know that there are people like, this dude is doing this from Guam. This is amazing. And I'm sure that there are people that are thinking to themselves like, Rolland, how can I get in touch with you? Because I want to understand really how you're operationalizing this, how you're doing these kinds of things. And that's just kind of one of the things we like to do here. So Rolland, if you can help all of the Going Long family understand what is the best way to get in touch with you, to contact you, to reach out with you, so that they could potentially have a conversation with you. What help us understand? How can we get in touch with you, man?
Yeah, the best way to probably get in touch with me is through Instagram. I'm the most active there. It's a personal page, so it's my life, it's my investing career or journey and everything. So the easiest way and where I'm most active and most likely to hit people back who reach out is on Instagram or on my Bigger Pockets profile. I'm on pro there, so people can just reach out to me at Rolland Wimberley on Bigger Pockets, or Instagram. I am R Wimber, so RWIMBER.
Awesome. So Rolland Wimberley on Bigger Pockets, or R Wimber over on Instagram. And by the way, go check out his pictures and videos. They're really, really cool. They're awesome. They're going to make you want to go to Guam, I promise. So listen, Rolland, I want to thank you so much for taking the time, investing it with me, sharing your experience with the entire Going Long family. It's been awesome, man. So thank you so very much for investing your time with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I had a great time. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Perfect. So I appreciate that. And just a couple words for the Going Long family as well. So I want to thank you once again for investing your time with Rolland and I today. Rolland shared, it's a mindset thing. It really is. When you put your mind to it, you have clarity what you want to be able to do. You understand where you want to go. You have the teams in place. Then you can continue to build your asset portfolio so that you can really live the life that you wanted to truly, truly live. And so because he shared so much greatness today, you can be that person. Share this with 2 or 3 other people. Be that positive influence on your friends. Share Rolland's story. And then by doing that, you're helping them to realize that, yes, this is possible. And also you're attracting them, bringing them closer with other like-minded people to the Going Long family, which we really appreciate that. And you know what? We would love Rolland and I to know, what did you think about today's episode? Leave us an honest review. Just write down what you thought about it. Go on your favorite platform. If you're on an iPhone, just go there really quickly. Leave us the review. You like this? You love what we could talk about this more? How can you can get out to Guam and visit Rolland? Like, let us know those kinds of things. That's really, really important for us. And that's something that I actually do. I go through each and every review and read through all of them so we can continue to make this show better and better for you. And speaking of which, like, I'm really waiting and excited about waiting for you on the very next conversation. But until then, I want you to go out and make it a great day and be awesome. Thanks so much, and we will see you soon.